Welcome into another episode of Sportslandia. Brian Slyke and Ray Bradley here with you, thanks to the Next Professional Athlete platform.
Hell yeah.
Got an interesting episode coming at you today. We're looking at the NFL Combine, some of the pre-draft trades that might happen. I know Ray and I have some thoughts on that, with his team having pick number 3, my team having pick number 1, I should say.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the court storming issues that are happening in college basketball.
Oh,
A little
no.
bit about the NBA landscape right now that we're closing in on the final 25 games of the regular season. Look at some MVP odds. And then we want to talk a little bit about some pet peeves, relate to the people a little bit. What really grinds your gears, as Peter Griffin would say. Or we also have our nerd quarter coming up as well. Ray, I know you're ready for that one. But let's jump into the NFL Combine. That is happening this week. That is also kind of the starting point of what trades could happen coming in the NFL draft. I know around this time last year, with the Bears having the number 1 overall draft pick, this was the week that all the magic happened, where Panthers came up. They traded 2 first-round picks, second-round pick, and a guy named DJ Moore. And that ended up being
another trade
pretty beneficial, So a lot of things that could be happening. I know, Ray, you're a Patriots fan, so we'll talk about the trades coming up. But do you have any individuals that were invited to the Combine that you are interested in keeping up with, to see if their draft stock is going to go up or down? I'm thinking of a wide receiver right now off the top of my head, but I want to know what some of your thoughts are.
I think there's probably a certain wide receiver that's on a lot of people's minds going into this. Coming into it,
I'm not going to the obvious pick. I'm not picking.
No. Well, okay then.
McConkey, actually? No, I'm kidding.
Huh? Generating those names on NCAA football on your Xbox? What's going on over there?
No.
I mean, for me, it's still the quarterbacks. Being in that third spot, not sure if are we taking one of those who falls? Are we trading back? Are we going a totally different direction, like a Marvin Harrison Jr.? But it's keeping an eye on kind of where their measurements come in, who is not measuring in certain things, which is always almost the most telling of like,
I want you to measure my hand. Throwing. I mean, Caleb's not throwing, Jaden's not throwing, and neither is Drake May.
And is that just like a pro day thing where it's like everyone wants to do the full workout in their most isolated kind of environment with their coaches and their receivers?
I think that's a little bit of it. You go and do your pro day. You're working with guys that you've been throwing to for the last 3-4 years, or however many years you've been at that school. So it's not like you're having to throw to other receivers that are at the Combine that you don't really have much of a relationship
with. Guy A,
with.
Guy B, Guy C. Oh, the post route was off on that. Well, I'd never thrown to that guy before. Yeah, that kind of thing. I guess it ends up coming down a lot more to just kind of the raw measurements and meeting those checks and passing them, and making sure you don't have like the little Kenny Pickett hands or whatever it might be, tall enough to see over the line, the Drew Brees thing, or Russell Wilson. We'll kind of see how things pan out. Like you said, nobody's throwing, but it's interviews, it's trades. Having all basically the executives and coaches in Indianapolis for a week or whatever. That's the reason a lot of these moves end up happening, when they're just talking in hotel bars and stuff like that.
As a Patriots fan, your team has mainly been known to trade back, and it's not necessary that they will take somebody at 3. There have been some rumors that maybe they go back. Is there a quarterback that you're looking at that isn't necessarily one of those top 3 guys that might pique your interest a little bit more?
Yeah, I've kind of been saying this for a little bit. I've been intrigued by the other Pac-12 guys who are not among the top echelon, the Penix, the Bo Nix. The Bo Nix, but I don't know why. I've got a sweet spot for Bo Nix.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by that. And I've been saying for a bit, whether it is like I am kind of still in favor of the Marvin Harrison and then pick another quarterback later. The trade down too, though, you're going to get a lot of assets at that point. And at that point, I would think that's somebody trading up to get that third quarterback. And then, maybe you are getting a Bears deal or some stupid Panthers team comes in and is like, take our pick next year. And it's like, okay, all right, sure, you're going to suck next year.
My arm, yeah.
Yeah.
Take that extra pick from you.
So I wouldn't completely be opposed to that. You're just getting more chips on the table with the draft. It's always kind of a bit random. You just want more stabs, more attempts at the target. So I'm intrigued by that. We're kind of in a sweet spot where it feels like, I don't know, it feels like the draft starts at 3. It's one of those, like, because, well, to an extent, like, number one, probably going to be the quarterback. Whether or not they trade it to somebody, it's going to be that quarterback. Number 2, it's probably going to be whoever that next quarterback is. And then 3 is like, is it that quarterback? Is it a trade down? Is it Marvin Harrison Jr.? So they're all options are kind of on the table right now, and it's intriguing to see which way they're going to go. And obviously with the entirely new front office and not even like a legit kind of GM, where we have our scouting guy who's like kind of just in charge of it. I'm in not a long history without Belichick at drafting, so I'm curious where they're going to go. Because the trade down was obviously Bill's favorite. Is that still one of the things in their arsenal? Is it just because of where they are? I don't know. We'll see. But you guys are also thinking a lot of these same things as well, with number 1 Fields and Caleb and the other picks and people coming up. So we're in similar situations.
I might be in the minority here, and I'll talk on the Bears in just a second. But if I was the Patriots, why not be maybe a little patient? Like, there's no need to jump out of that number 3 spot right away. Where, say there is a little bit of a shakeup, and maybe it's Drake May that is the number 2 quarterback, and Jaden Daniels gets taken second to Washington. And like, hey, maybe you like Drake May, maybe you don't, and you use that opportunity to maybe trade back a couple of spots, get a few more draft assets. Because this is, you mentioned it, this is the first time you don't have Bill, so you're I don't want to say you're restarting this team, you're more retooling and probably going to try to create your own identity. I know that Mayo was there with Belichick, so there's going to be some overlap, but I don't think it would necessarily be a bad idea to possibly trade back, still stay within the top 10 and get an extra asset. Maybe that's another pick in this draft or a pick in this draft and next year's draft to go along with it. But I don't think New England needs to pounce on a trade anytime soon. I think you can sort of let, the number 1 pick dictate what you want to do, whether the Bears trade that or they keep it and take Caleb Williams. I just don't see a huge rush for New England. I know quarterback is a big issue, but
it's the number 1.
You can find people, a little bit later on. I like what you said about Bo Nix. He's a guy that has elevated himself over the last couple of years. I know the system is a bit different than what he was running in Auburn, and it was a bit more succinct and timing throws, which doesn't always work in the NFL. But he took the necessary steps that I saw from Auburn to Oregon to increase his efficiency from the pocket, cut down on interceptions, and his ability to move the pocket as well. I think that was underutilized by him when he was at Auburn, his ability to move and extend plays and move the pocket a little bit more into his favor when needed to. Granted, again, at Oregon, he didn't need to necessarily do that a whole bunch because of how the offense was set up, but it's an intriguing prospect. And I think Penix, too, is another guy that strong arm. Obviously, he's got some medical concerns in New England. So just like maybe that's somebody you take a flyer on in 2nd or 3rd round. It really depends on where he ends up, obviously, if he even makes it that far. But, he proved that he's got a strong arm. I think the national championship game was sort of a one-off. We saw what he was able to do the entire season this year with Dunze and some of the other pieces that UW had, where I'm not necessarily scared of what happened in the national championship game. I think he has also blossomed very well. The Pac-12 was an incredible conference this year with quarterbacks.
On their way out, they sadly had one of their best years they'd had in a long time.
It's crazy to think about that this conference just sort of folded because of everything that's happening in the college landscape. And this was probably one of their best years outside of a team actually winning the national title, before the college football playoff and everything else like that.
Yeah, and still getting there. And Penix played really well in that other playoff game. So there's not like exactly big stage concerns, but it is tough to kind of, like you said, it would have to be like taking a shot in the 2nd or 3rd. It's tough to put that much capital in somebody's with that medical history at that position.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel a little bit similar with Jaden Daniels, not because of an injury history, but maybe because of an injury future, because he's just slender and he's running a lot. And he, from the stuff that I've heard, he's not exactly avoiding contact at this point in his career. So
that's something you can learn, though, I feel like.
it is, but you got to learn it. And there's still guys in the league now who have never really learned that, and maybe can get away with it because they're more physically built, like a Josh Allen. But guys like Lamar who are more slender, it's like they're very good at kind of avoiding that contact, getting out.
That was going to be my, I don't want to say comp, but who I would reach out to if I was Jaden Daniels, or find somebody.
Like,
Pardon?
oh, he's going down, he's slithering out. Watching
Yeah.
his tape, kind of following in his shit, because you can't really take that much contact if you're that small, and if he
No.
with his speed, he's just gonna end up running. So there's some concerns there, but it almost like you're saying, it's starting to sound like he may jump Drake May and is now in that number 2 spot because of his athleticism. So we'll kind of see where it lands. But yeah, it's shaking up in Indy.
Yeah, and then I'll talk about the Bears
That's
a
the
little bit too.
quarterbacks.
Yeah, we were only talking quarterbacks. I know I was looking at Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver from Texas. He's kind of my guy
Right.
that I'm looking at. That and Wilson from Michigan. I think those are two guys that have good size, good hands that could help a team at least be a number 2 at the next level, at the very least, to complement your number 1, or maybe you have them as your number 1 to bridge you into the next year. But I think both of those guys could be solid NFL prospects, but we'll see how it shakes out with the draft, combine, and everything else with them.
Landing spots so key for all these guys.
Exactly. So like those are 2 wide receivers that I'm sort of looking at. Running backs is kind of a crapshoot. Seems like you can find talent just about anywhere in the backfield from rounds 1 through 7. It's a position that is basically overvalued, or was overvalued for a while now, and it's sort of evening out because you're realizing running backs only get 1 contract. You get 2 if you're lucky. And then you get minimum contracts, sure, if you want to stick around in the league for a bit. But
it does make those running backs you draft though all that more important, because that's when you're getting that. Like, if you draft that guy in the first, second round or whatever, you're using him for those 4 odd years. So you kind of do need to nail a lot of these picks. That's where teams end up finding success, because I mean, you can sign a guy in the secondary market, obviously, but a lot of these guys, by the time they get there, it's you're this may be more extreme, but the Melvin Gordon, Dalvin Cook on the Ravens, it's like, it's a little late for this, but we'll see. I mean,
so many miles on those guys from it.
Even like an Austin Eckler, who's going to be a free agent this year, it's like, what's the market for him going to be like? Kind of an undersized, older running back looking for that. I don't even know. This might be his third contract, third contract. So
I think it's his 3rd contract. Yeah.
Versus you just draft a guy in the 3rd round, and now you're rolling. And he's cheap and he's team controlled. So this is the perfect place to find a running back. But yeah, you kind of got to do it. But yeah, like you said, there may be a lot there. The guy for me is the guy from Michigan, who
Blake Corum. Yeah.
Just purely based off my casual playoff college football watching. I was very impressed by him. The big tight end prospect, right? Brock Bowers.
Yep.
He'll be there. Fantastic name. Tough to beat. Seems like a perfect tight end. He was made in a lab just based off of that. So, I'm always curious what the next big tight end prospect is going to look like. And he's already been getting like some even like top 10 hype for the overall draft, I feel like. So that's kind of crazy for a tight end, I feel. So he must have some hype behind him. I'm kind of curious.
Don't sleep on the Iowa tight end. All right, Eric All. Iowa's just
can't sleep on any of them. Yeah, they absolutely are.
Obviously, I don't think I even remember him doing much anything this year. But
he's from Iowa.
I think you make a great point. There's always that one sleeper guy that everybody's so focused in on that top player, Brock Bowers, for that position is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
the tight end position is so hard to predict because you're an extra offensive lineman, but also an extra receiver, and you have to find good balance. So many guys you see can do like one or the other, and so you get multiple tight ends, or you got 3 tight ends on the team because one of them is your pass catcher, but then you got 2 that you put on the line to block. Where it seems like Bowers is a good mix of both. I haven't seen many other tight ends do a lot of both right now, but I also haven't spent a lot of time digging into the tight end position. But I don't know.
It's leading more receiving in past years. I mean, your Kincaids, your Laportas, all these new guys coming in are receivers who play the tight end position. There's not as many kind of big bruising, you got to get this guy because he's the best blocker. And also he catches. It's definitely been Westover. Basically a receiver. Like,
The tight end for Washington. He was injured
Yeah,
earlier this year, but he made a couple of big plays in both the semifinal and the finals for the Huskies, and I think he's a smaller size Brock Bowers. I don't know if his blocking is necessarily as strong as some tight ends in the league, but
you kind of get away with
coaches
that.
gave him a lot of praise because of his effort. Effort is such a huge part of that aspect of the tight end position because you could easily just mail it in and chip block and go out and
Yeah,
catch a 2 yard out
that,
route, whatever you want to do.
that
But
they found out.
it like Westover, the coaches at UW were praising him with his effort on the line as a blocker, and then also his ability to get out and catch passes. He's not the most athletic guy, but he gives you effort, which I think goes a long way at that position.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, that's the whole blocking side of it is almost feels like playing defense in the NBA. It's like, I'm gonna go catch the balls. It's like, yeah, but you kind of do need to block. It's like, all right, okay, I'll put in the effort and do the dirty work in order to get that play action or that little the thing that was killing people. I feel like all year this year was the block into the kind of late release out into
Yep.
the flat, and then it's just you're gone. There, we saw that multiple times for huge chunk plays. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it could be interesting. I don't know. I'm curious to see where he goes. I'm curious to see where a lot of those things end up. But yeah, it's all kind of
There could be a
beginning.
lot of movement over the next couple of weeks that lead up to the draft. There's
And
always
then yeah,
speculation. Obviously, there's 10
sorry.
different talking heads that put out mock drafts, and
Yeah,
players are going to go up and down. They're going to, suggest trades that probably aren't even, possibly real. They're just trying to stir something up and get something going. But
yeah, we're entering the silly season. Certainly for everybody's making their own mock drafts now. So you got to put a little spin on it, a little sugar and
silly
spice.
season, smoke screen season, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it. There's
everything.
multiple entities out there that are just trying to, you know, get some
I'm up
clicks,
there.
maybe talked about on some of these shows where they make the bold prediction, the bold move,
Yeah,
hot take, if you will, whatever, and it just doesn't. It, how often are mock drafts even on point? I think I listened to a podcast with McShay and even Mel Kiper. They're like, yeah, I think I've gotten the top 5 picks correct like maybe 2 or 3 times, and they've been doing it
yeah,
for 20 plus years. Like that shows you how just unpredictable the draft is.
yeah. And I mean, it's different. It's 30 plus different organizations going through their different processes of scouting players, and so literally everybody's board's gonna be different. There's no real way to nail the mock draft. If anything, I was gonna say like the top picks, or at least like a lot of times I feel like you could maybe get the top five close to, just because it's like, well, these are literally kind of the best players available
Yeah.
regardless of a lot of these metrics, and it's gonna be quarterback, and by the time we get to the draft, we'll kind of, a lot of in the past. Maybe this one's still kind of up in the air, but you get to a point where you're like, it's kind of consensus here. But once you get beyond that and you're in those mid teens, 20s, 30s, like
It's
it's
crapshoot.
complete chaos. You have no idea what teams, if that team actually thinks of what you think that need is actually a need, or they're going to fill it in free agency, or they're going to draft somebody, or they are going to draft that position, but it's not that guy. They don't actually like that guy. They like that guy. And yeah, the mocks, it's a template. It's fun. There's too much time before the draft, if anything, is what it really is
Oh,
saying.
it's just
But
time filler. Yeah.
yeah, and it's with so many different options. I mean, just at this point, it's hard to even get one down because you would immediately have to assume what the Bears want to do, and there's like a whole different, basically like kind of three or four giant different paths that they could take.
Yeah, on the Bears. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of Chicago sports radio this past week, and I won't lie, I'm getting a little bit fatigued on, take Caleb or trade Justin, and there's a lot of interesting aspects to it all. They hired their offensive coordinator. I want to say 2 weeks ago now, Shane Waldron. He came from Seattle. Had an interesting chat with somebody on Reddit, and it was just like, yeah, Waldron was not a good fit in Seattle, and I was like, fuck, all right, this is a good start for the Bears again. But the guy did elaborate that it was just more him and Pete Carroll were butting heads and just didn't work well together. But who knows how that is? But my point to that is, though, they hired Shane Waldron, and Justin Fields has yet to get a playbook, which may not seem too weird. You're on the fence. Maybe you don't want to give the guy that playbook because he might get traded. So, why put that time and effort in? But at the same time, if you're going to keep him around or you're still contemplating on keeping him around, wouldn't you want him to at least see some of the playbook, like get
Yeah.
to it, get immersed with it? And they just haven't done that. So that's, I mean, you know how I felt. I would rather them keep Justin Fields and get a few more assets. I think Peter King said it well that Justin Fields is a B quarterback probably, and
Yeah.
what is wrong with having a B quarterback when you can set him up with so many pieces if you were to trade back from that number one spot again, where you might have a guy who's an A prospect, but he could also not be anything close to what you expect him to be. Like
Yeah. It's a big
it
swing.
goes with the draft where there's so much uncertainty on how a guy is going to translate to
Yeah.
the NFL. But I feel like Justin, he is the how do I want to put this? He's a problem that we do know, I guess.
Yeah. Do you
Where
want to take the double or the triple, or do you want like the 50-50 on the home run next time? Like
yeah,
similar to
exactly.
that. At least he's like a quality kind of starter within the league. You can start at that and maybe grow from there. If you boot him and go for the home run with Caleb and then it doesn't work, then it's like, all right, well, we're starting again, all over again.
I've heard cases on both sides, so it's just like, oh, we need to restart the quarterback clock. Which okay,
The contract,
I
that's the
get.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get that.
one of
I'm
those.
probably a bit more naive on that situation because I personally don't think Justin Fields has done enough to even get a fucking Daniel Jones contract and how high that one is. But with how the market is going, he's going to get a contract like that.
Yeah,
That's just how
yeah.
it is.
Every
Um,
quarterback.
it's just like
If you prove yourself a capable starter, the market is just going to kind of continue to reset.
it's going to
That's
fall
why
into
Daniel
one.
Jones
Like
got what he got. That's why Tua is going to maybe look at 40, 50 mil, even with some of his injury concerns. Like that's kind of where you're at. I'm curious when the next quarterback we see who's going to like not get 30 mil, like 2025. Like you
I don't think
really
you're going to see that. I mean, the cap just went up another 30 million, which was
yeah,
unprecedented.
yeah.
It went
Yes.
up an extra 15 million than what they thought it was going to. They're still coming back
Yeah.
from the COVID year and everything, so like
Yeah,
that's why it went up so high. But
right.
like, god damn, like those contracts aren't going to go down; they're just going to go higher.
Yes.
Um, the value maybe is not quite the same, inflation and some of that other stuff, and just like the value of a contract from 5 years ago is not quite what it's going to be 2 years from now. It's
It
just how
looks a
it is.
lot better right now. Every contract signed that long ago now is like, oh, beautiful.
What a
Yeah,
steal!
yeah,
Like
yeah. It's similar to like an Anthony Simons in the NBA right now, where it's like they signed that deal 3 years ago. Now he's making kind of a cheap contract. So yeah, but which
I,
is just the way these kind of go. But it's
yeah,
the
I
contract
mean,
is a compelling argument for me, but it can go either way.
Peter King just dropped a bomb, by the way, when he was basically retiring from Monday Morning Quarterback or whatever. And he's
Yeah,
just like, I've got no sources on this. This is just a gut feeling that the Bears are going to trade the number one pick. Um, I,
huh.
I'm for it in a sense. Like I said,
You're still torn,
what was that?
and you're still torn. It sounds like
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I am a little bit still torn. I think it would be great to re
a big
up with
problem.
some more draft picks. I think that's the best way to build your team. You can't keep filling holes through free agency, and
Yeah,
we traded a second for Montez Sweat, so like it's one pick. Don't get me wrong. So like I'd like to get some of that back, maybe, um, or you trade back from three to make another historic haul, get another first pick next year. Like Peter King made up something where it was like you could get first this year, first next year, second next year, and something else. I was like, that seems
yeah.
pretty damn high. I know it's the number one pick, but it also depends on like where you're coming from. If you're coming from 12, yeah, I'm going to try to fleece you hard. If you're coming from
Yeah.
3, like New England, I'm just throwing out a team. It's probably not going to be as steep because it's an immediate turnaround from 1 to 3. Like that's still pretty high value. Where moving back from 1 to
Oh,
10,
hmm. I'm
you'd have
intrigued by
to
that.
give up a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd give you 3 and not a first round next year.
No, well, no. I need something else too. Yeah.
Anything other than that, I would
You
actually
want
be
Fields?
intrigued by that.
I'll give you Fields for
No,
number
I
3.
wouldn't take a chance on Caleb at that point. No,
Um, I'm just
the Fields thing, I can't, especially with the contract makes no sense for our timeline. Like it just doesn't. we're going to end
what's
up.
the cap situation for New England? Like the Bears have all the cap space in the world, especially with the cap going up. So like that's why the contract doesn't necessarily bother me with Justin. And everybody's saying, "Oh, we need to reset the contract." Like I hear you, I understand your argument, but
We're just,
that's a lot of
I want
space right now.
I would like a longer run up before I have to decide if I want to pay him. With the fact that we're sort of rebuilding, retooling right now, it's like I think that's a little too immediate. I would imagine our cap space situation is all right. I haven't looked into it too recently, but we don't have that many big money deal guys on this team really, outside of a couple defenders. Nobody really on offense, so we could absorb that. Like it is possible, but if I'm right there sitting there, I would probably just take the swing on Caleb for our timeline rather than immediately jump into it with Justin. And then there's expectations, and then he needs to still play well, but our team isn't really set up to support that. He would have such dog shit weapons compared to even what he had in Chicago. Like there's no DJ Moore on the
Yeah,
Patriots, Devontae Parker and Juju. So you're in trouble there.
it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, if you're the Bears, like it's not an ideal situation with Justin. I feel like had this coming up been Justin's third year, I think it'd be easier to move him because once you trade him, the team that takes him on, you almost have to immediately pick up his fifth year option if you really believe in him. You have to do that this offseason. So
Yeah.
that's sort of where, the Bears are not in an ideal situation. I don't feel like they're necessarily in charge of the trade market for Justin. I think other teams get to dictate that because they're the one that are going to have to figure out
Yeah.
if they want to pick up that fifth year option so soon because they don't. It's they're basing it off of what he did with the Bears, and so it's just like,
Yes.
do you have enough trust in him? It's not like you have him in your system for a full year, then decide.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'd be curious to see. I don't know what kind of team would even or what timeline would fit Fields well if there's a team out there like I think you had mentioned a couple times Atlanta potentially
Yeah,
maybe would
Atlanta
be
was one. I know, like Fields went on the St. Brown podcast last week, and he talked about Atlanta. He didn't necessarily seem enthralled with going back home. I think it
oh,
seemed like there was more distractions with going home. His first line was, you know, Atlanta would be
it'd be a lot.
fine, I guess. I'm paraphrasing, but it was just like so many people hit me up when I'm in town, and it's just like I could definitely see that being somewhat.
Yeah.
I don't want to say an issue, but maybe more of an annoyance when playing at home and in front
Yeah.
of everybody. Like everybody
Certainly.
constantly trying to
A
hit
constant
you up into
distraction.
your DMs or hitting you up with a text. I need tickets. Can you hook me up with this? And it's just like unneeded distractions, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, true. Yeah, I was just at least that team probably wants to be good right now, and they've got some offensive players around them, but they need a quarterback. It's not a long list at this point, or maybe it is, but then most of those teams would rather. I mean, there's three top quarterbacks in this draft. Most of these teams would probably rather just take a shot on one of those guys. It's just a matter of, I suppose, at that point, it is a matter of the price you're paying because the price for Fields would probably be cheaper. Like
Yeah.
maybe it is
No,
like
it definitely would be cheaper than trying to trade up and get like the number one pick and
yeah,
trade up with
they need to
Washington or even New England.
yeah, that price is like probably multiple firsts. Maybe Fields is like a top second rounder and a player, or a couple
Yeah.
second, third, something. I don't know. So it's intriguing, but it's all going to start at the top. It's all about the quarterbacks and the carousel, and then I feel like after three, things will kind of calm down for a bit, and then it'll just be where I mean, from a quarterback's perspective, where do those kind of Pac-12 guys land? Do you have any interest in the Michigan guy? I kind of have already written him off. I don't know why.
I'm not really
It,
intrigued by JJ. I think he's
I
done nice things at Michigan, and
I didn't see a ton. Yeah,
he benefited from Jim Harbaugh just being a really good quarterback whisperer. I mean, everywhere he's gone for the most part, he's been able to
yeah,
develop. I know it took a little bit of time at Michigan, but he finally got somebody to work with that was more athletic and could throw a ball.
yeah. I
It
don't know.
also helps
It's
that
just
he
the
had Andrew
confidence.
Luck when he was at Stanford. But I think Jim Harbaugh, he's a guy who knows the position. He played it in college, played it in the NFL. Like, what other person would you want to try to help you develop? I think JJ, it's really going to depend on what the scenario that he lands in. I don't know if he thrives.
Yeah,
I've been hearing him connected to Denver in a lot of mock drafts, and I don't know if he thrives there.
huh? Yeah, I don't know. At least
And
you got
that's
to
just
on
that's
paper.
just one team. That is one team that I had heard that he was linked to. I mean, even with like Oakland, I don't know if that's necessarily a good fit. And that's a team that's probably desperate for a QB, so I wouldn't be surprised if they
Yeah.
reach and try to get one. I think they're fine with Aiden O'Connell being their backup for long term, but he's not going to be their starter. And so I can see the Raiders trying to make a move to come up and take possibly a J.J. McCarthy, but I haven't seen anything that necessarily blew me away as him as a quarterback compared to some of these other top prospects at the moment.
Yeah, he hasn't quite been on my radar of guys. That would be the one where if we end up like trading back and picking him, I'd probably be the least enthused of all of those options.
I would say that your first year is going to be a big learning curve. Probably a lot similar to this year. I know it's not the norm for you Patriots guys, but
well, honestly, it was way back in the day before my time, and it may now be in the future. It's very possible.
Yeah.
I think AJ is that's probably the line where I would start thinking about Fields instead. Like I'm intrigued by the top 3 guys and those Pac-12 guys. Outside of that, I might start asking around about Fields.
Could you see New England?
I still love him as a prospect.
You want who as a prospect? I'm sorry.
I still love Fields as a.
Yeah. Could you see a moment where possibly New England trades back from that number 3 position, get picks back, and then possibly trade your second round pick or something for Fields?
Couple of those for him. Pick up a receiver or something.
Yeah, and that way you're gonna probably get a first round pick from just trading that number 3 pick. So you're not losing a first round pick. You'll probably pick up a second, so you'd have 2 seconds, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you could possibly package one of those into trading for Justin. If it comes to that, if you pass up a quarterback number 3.
Yeah, if we were able to still get one of the kind of top receivers of the class, and then trade for Field, I think that would be intriguing. I would be into that.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
Maybe.
There it is. All that matters is the quarterbacks in our teams. I think we nailed it.
Well, yeah. For us, that's a big problem. I don't think I've ever had a quarterback that I truly believe in. In my life. At least you had Tom Brady for 15 years that you were a fan of the Patriots.
I had that one guy. He was pretty good.
Yeah. You're talking about Brian Hoyer, right?
No, Ryan Mallett.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Jacoby Brissett, big fan.
Jacoby. First of all, Mason picking up Jacoby in our fantasy league. That was a...
Did he?
That was an eyebrow raiser for me. I was a bit confused. I don't even know where he's signed right now.
He'll get picked up somewhere. I don't even know if he is signed right now, but I feel like some team will
he'll be a backup somewhere.
I always kind of thought he was better than Jimmy G. I never understood the hype when we had Jimmy G. He sucked.
Yeah, well, Jimmy G's career trajectory has not been what I don't think anybody expected. From being a second-round draft pick. I know he made a Super Bowl, but he had a lot of pieces to help him out.
One Super Bowl. Super Bowls?
Well,
maybe just the one.
He's won a Super Bowl with the Patriots as a backup, and then he went to the Super Bowl as a starter with the 49ers.
Yes.
What
do you do with those rings as a backup quarterback? That's so awkward and weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That's when you say, like, I was on a team that won the Super Bowl. I didn't win the Super Bowl.
At least, like last year, Chad Henne had, like, that one drive where so he can at least be like, hey, I did actually help us do this. Every other time it's just like, who are you again? What is your job here? Like, how dare you? But like, I would feel so weird with that ring. That would be very strange. But
I mean, I would cherish it. I'm sure you got great memories when you look at it and everything. But yeah, it's not like I was the Super Bowl champion. I was the reason why we won, or I contributed heavily in our victory. There could be small ones where it's like, hey, I picked apart something in the tape room, and here's what we looked at, and it ended up being a play that worked for us. Sure.
The Lions guy, I keep everyone happy. I bought the orange slices at halftime. Yep. Like, yeah, there's ways to contribute outside of the field, but yeah.
I got the donuts on Monday morning when we come in to watch tape. Don't worry about it. I got it, guys.
Well, all right, I take it back. Well, give him a donut ring or something, a ring pop. That might be more apt. I don't know.
You don't get the one that has like 1,000 diamonds. You get the one that has like fake diamonds.
Yeah.
That's the one you get. That's what it is. Let's change it up a little bit. We spent a lot of time talking about the NFL now that season's over. But one of the hot button topics this past week is court storming in the NCAA.
Got some incidents.
This is something that was brought up probably over a month ago now by Matt Painter. He sort of predicted this whole thing going down. After their loss to Nebraska, it was their first road loss of the season. He talked about, hey, something needs to be done here. people are going to get hurt. And since then, Caitlin Clark has been run into by somebody storming the court. We had Kyle Filipowski this last week. Uh,
Yeah,
he
so
got
that
ran into after the Wake Forest win, and John Shire was pretty heated about that. The head coach over at Duke, and um, you know, I kind of wanted
understandable.
to hear what your perspectives were on court storming, and I'll give you some of mine.
Yeah, I mean, you see it happen, and it's pretty insane and chaotic and scary for athletes and even some fans alike. But to go as far, it is such a cool and unique thing to college sports that doesn't really
100%.
exist anywhere. Adds so much to the atmosphere, and as chaotic and crazy as it can be one of the coolest things when it's like dramatically actually worth it and uh, not worth it, but it justifies it when there's that big upset. I don't know. I to say that we should completely ban it, I think is a bit rash. I think there's options. Like the thing that I talked about with some other of my buddies at Oregon, they just have like a grace period basically. Like I think it's like 5 minutes after the game ends, and then you can storm the court. Something like that seems like a very simple solution to just get I mean the visiting team, the losing team, whoever it is, to get them out of there and on their own little area, at least just in the locker room or something, so they're safe, and then everybody can come in. And like, yes, it is naturally like a chaotic kind of thing where there are chances people get hurt. To be fair, this kind of happens like I don't know.
This happens
It's happened
at least more than a dozen times per season. Like,
dozen times of the season, and it's like these two things have happened in the last 5 years. So it's like I get it. This guy and his player, and he's mad, and he's going to yell about it. And fair, there probably should be some things. I think there are some like actual things you can implement into this before you go to absolutely not allowed. But I will say it's annoying when I don't know a 12 seed beats a 2 seed and they storm the court. It's like, guys, this is not what that's for. This is
yeah, that's a little different. Like when it comes to tournament time and everything. Well,
yeah.
I'm cool with court storming. I think certain schools and institutions have prepared themselves for such an event. Um, uh,
Yeah.
Even the interview I listened to with John Shire, he talked about how, hey, they lost at Arkansas early this year, and Arkansas was ready for it. They had security on the floor. They roped off the Duke bench so nobody could get over there, and the players were able to get off, and it was fine. Like I think court storming has a place in college basketball because it's not just about the team that just won in that aspect. Like, don't get me wrong. Obviously, it matters what happens on the court between the two teams, but the memories, how often do you like get to storm the court? I know at Central Michigan, we never played anybody good enough on our home floor to do that. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Boise State was probably something similar. Maybe you beat New Mexico because they were probably ranked. I don't know. But like, those are memories that stick with you for a long time. I feel like if you're a part of that.
Yeah.
But there's also a safe way to do it. That Wake Forest one, there were people running on the court before the clock even hit zero. Like,
Yeah, that's
you had
insane.
zero time for any of those Duke players to make a move to head to their bench or get off the court before people were even running on. Like, you got to have at least a full 30 seconds, maybe a minute at least, to
Yeah.
let the opposing team get off the floor. Um,
Yeah, it's mad.
I've heard speculation that the Kyle Filipowski injury. It went from a calf or ankle to a knee to he's somewhat fine. He's just bag of ice now. I don't know what the total deal is. I feel like his diagnosis has changed multiple times over the last week. But
Right.
what'd you say?
Right. No, yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds
Yeah,
like it.
yeah. So it's just like I think a lot of people make a stink about it because it did happen, and it's happened to two higher profile players, Caitlin Clark and Kyle Filipowski, over the last month and a half or so.
Yeah.
But it's not a normal thing. Like, how often do we see court stormings happen and almost nothing occurs? I mean, I will say there's two sides to it too, though. I mean, we talked about it in one of our first podcasts. But Caleb Williams, when he lost Notre Dame, and you had the Notre Dame kid come up to him and was like, "Oh, what about your painted fingernails now?" and what yada yada yada. At least don't be a dick about it. Like,
Yeah.
you should be celebrating that your team won. You don't need to go and throw it in the guy's face. That's just asking for trouble. That goes into the I'm okay with an
Kind of.
athlete punching a fan if you're being that big of an asshole. Like, you
I
came
always
onto their field at that point. That's on you.
Yeah. Hey, even when in that Boise State game, when I was at Boise State, I always defended LeGarrette Blount for punching that player in the face because he was being an asshole. he walked
Rightfully
up to him,
pissed, it's
was
just like
right up in his face and laughing at him, and it was like, yeah, that's LeGarrette Blount. I wouldn't fuck around with him, and that's been my guy ever since. But yeah, I think there's mechanisms that they can have. It's largely kind of like making sure the security is on point in a lot of those situations, which it can be lax in some college landscapes. I
I
think we
wonder
can
if
both.
that comes down to some budgetary stuff too. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
like,
very.
listen, we work at UP, so obviously we see security around for our games. But say we
I don't know
beat
if they can
Gonzaga, you know how many security people are there? There's definitely not enough to stop rushing
one at
students onto
three
the
or
floor.
four kind of. Yeah, it's not going to happen, and they're not quite equipped to physically sometimes either. So it's
Exactly. So it's like they have to pay for security. It's not like security's free. So it kind of depends on that. I don't know if maybe you bring in a bit more security when you bring in a more high profile team, just in case something does happen, and you got to be prepared for it. But
maybe.
some of that goes on the administration too. Like there has to be somewhat of a universal plan. Obviously, some conferences have um, you know ways to deter you. You get fined if your court is stormed after a big victory, but a lot of institutions don't care. It's such a big win. It's like, yeah, we'll pay the fine. It doesn't matter to
Yeah,
us.
it's all fun and games at that point. Yeah, I hope that there are some. I think the grace period thing is just a simple fix,
Yeah.
and then it's like, and there's ways to enforce it with students if they're going early or whatever it is. We've got enough cameras in all these places now to identify students and places and come back around and find them later, tisk tat, whatever you want the university to do. So I hope it sticks around. It's fun, but it is kind of a chaotic moment that can go astray when it's in these situations where it's not kind of handled properly, which we
Mhm.
have seen unfortunately recently.
Yeah. You're going to need it from both sides, both teams, administration, I guess three sides, because even the students too. It really goes
Yeah,
all the way around. Like, you're not hoping for a loss if you're a coach, but you have to realize that if something like this is going to happen, your guys probably have a bit more pep in your step. Let's get moving. Um, so we
yeah,
don't have any issues like that. And then administration has to be prepared with security, and then students like, goddamn, show a little patience. I know you're excited and everything, but it goes back to the Wake Forest. Like the clock didn't even hit zero, and you're already running onto the court. You're asking for trouble in that
yeah.
sense.
And I think that's how, like, I was listening to a pod this morning about it, and the NBA basically banned it, like, in the 80s because they had a couple incidents where fans were literally, like, kind of it was leaking onto the court before the game had ended, and they very quickly were like, all right, yeah, this is not happening anymore. But that's why it's even more special in college. It's the only place where that happens. Like, that's not. And so, yeah, I hope they don't take it away, but obviously there's some cracks in the wall that they need to deal with as well.
I'm sure that's something that'll be fleshed out over the next few months and going into the next college basketball season. And guess what? It's still not going to be fixed because I guarantee you it'll happen next year, and somebody's going to have some
Yeah,
type of complaint about it as well.
yeah. Hopefully nothing bad happens is all you can really hope for, but it's part of the game. I don't know. You don't want to lose it.
No, I think there's too much excitement that goes along with it. Um,
Yeah,
it's just I think about if I had the opportunity to do it, like that would be a once in a lifetime type thing where it's just like, oh my gosh, like we beat the number 3 team in the nation. Our team had never done that, and like I was in
yeah,
coaching for that, and everything. Like even the most, I don't want to say innocuous, but like Central Michigan when I was there, they had a guy put up 50 points. Like that hadn't happened. Like that was
Ooh,
cool. I remember that. And,
damn,
and so like that is a cool memory to have where, and that's not even court storming. So I think it has a place in college athletics. I think that's just part of the college landscape. And I don't see a way of getting rid of it necessarily. Like I said, finding only does so much. Teams are way more into the publicity that they get after getting the win against such a high caliber opponent that
yeah.
they'll
You're
pay
on
any
that
fine.
replay. Yeah, and even if you come out and you're like, all right, we're banning it. It's like, well, I mean, what happens when Central Arkansas beats Alabama and they students just run on the field? Like it's just it could still just end up happening. So I think you're better off policing it than you are completely banning it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Any other thoughts on
Your thoughts?
on court storming? All right. So the other thing we have going on, state of the NBA, we got 25 games left now, basically, or
Here we
roughly,
go. Here we
after the
go.
All-Star break, which is also
Yeah.
a weirdly timed All-Star break, by the way. Not even nearly close to halfway through the season.
I like
It's
it.
past halfway.
I like it. I like it as someone who works it because it's like I think if it was halfway, it'd be like, oh, all right, well, halfway. But we get here and we get through it, and it's like, oh, it's actually just like a home stretch. Like we're just sprinting to the finish line
Yeah.
now. Like 25 games, two months, not even. It's a grind, but it is. I think it'd be worse if you came out of it and there were still 42 games.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a little tougher.
I listened to a podcast with Peyton Pritchard on it, and he just talked about it. Said, yeah, honestly, the worst part of the season is like the week and a half before the All-Star break because you're already past halfway. You're tired. You're dogged.
Yeah.
Like you just want to break right now, and then it comes like 3 weeks after the halfway point. So like you have almost a full month before, and so like you said, it's more of a sprint once it comes down to the end of it after the All-Star break.
Yeah, and we are sprinting. We absolutely are. Yeah, my Celtics are top of the East still, holding strong, looking good. And then the West is like the two young guns are kind of at the top right now with Minnesota and Oklahoma City, with Denver kind of just peeking over the corner behind them, and the Clippers there as well, who've seemed to find a groove despite all appearances otherwise of what that team might look like before we saw them play. But it is kind of feeling like those are some of the main teams we're going to end up talking about. I mean, Milwaukee's still hanging out there in the East and figuring out things with Doc Rivers now and Dame and Giannis, but they're still kind of lagging behind. Maybe New York can make a big push with OG Anunoby and all of that, and then you have Miami as well, who are always going to kind of be the killers in there. So it's rounding
Miami
out.
has almost perfected the we do enough to make the playoffs
Under the radar.
and we can flip a switch once we get there. Because they've done it the
scary.
last few years, like from the bubble season to last year or whatever, 2 years ago, whenever they were in the finals. I can't exactly remember.
It was last year, yeah. I think it was, yeah.
So
yeah, they have, and they got my guy Terry Rozier at the deadline, the former Celtic legend. So I'm really already not looking forward to any kind of series with the Heat. They were in Portland last night playing the Blazers, and beat them rather well. But yeah, they got a squad. They got pretty much the same team, and they still got scary. Now they got Scary Terry on top of it. They lost Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, I believe, but they've kind of already. I mean, they got Tyler Hero back now, and Duncan Robinson's actually playing well for them. So they're still going to be a threat. I mean, honestly, they're like kind of the team I'm the most scared of.
Miami,
as a Celtics fan, they always are, because I'm just not. I mean, I don't know if Joel Embiid's coming back with the Sixers. I don't actually know if he'll be back in time for playoffs, but we've always had a pretty decent time beating them as well in their current construction. Milwaukee, we've beaten at their peak, and now I feel like with Drew Holiday on our side and Dame on their side, I kind of like some of those defensive matchups a little bit better for us. I was
going to say the Milwaukee Bucks give me the biggest question mark. I know they boosted their offense by bringing in Dame, but obviously we're Dame guys. We both live in the Portland area. You obviously worked with the Trailblazers, but he's somewhat of a defensive liability at times, though. So like he doesn't get back, and
absolutely,
and it hurts Milwaukee a lot. And so I'm not as high on Milwaukee as I'm sure some people are. There's just a lot of concern with that team, especially with. I don't want to say it was infighting or whatever, but whatever was going on with the coaching situation, that was so bizarre that the switch halfway through, I think you had single-digit losses at that time. Like, your team was obviously doing something right. You were winning games, and then you feel like you had to fire Adrian Griffin just out of the blue and hire Doc Rivers, who, I know Doc had success with that 08 Celtics team, but it's not like he's been pushing teams to the finals.
He's had a lot of kind of high-profile fall aparts in the playoffs since that 08 Celtics run. And I mean, this has been in the discourse recently too, with JJ Redick kind of coming back at him. He's he does make a lot of excuses about those runs. And you go back and he's like, well, this, and this, and this, and I didn't really lose this one. And it's like, all right, you are losing a lot of these 3-1 leads. I can't really. And yes, a lot of these teams have been chaotic, whether it was like the Donald Sterling Clippers or like all these James Harden teams he had to deal with. But you're still the coach there, and it's you got to get your guys ready to play, especially in the playoffs and losing those leads. So who's to say it doesn't happen again? I don't know, but I don't know. The
Can I,
Celtics have
can I
handled
say
them.
something that might be a little controversial? Maybe he's just
Yeah.
players don't respect him as much as media do, like playing for him. Everybody
The
talks so
allure,
highly of Doc and what he's been able to do, at least from the media perspective. And I know he's a good
yeah,
coach. Obviously, he wouldn't be in this position. I'm not saying he's not a good coach, but maybe his players just don't necessarily buy in with him, or they see something in him that the rest of us don't because they're with him every day. I don't know.
it
This
seems
is
like
kind of the feeling that I get, though, is there's discourse
yeah.
between the team and him because possibly something that he's doing.
It seems like he's got a pretty short cycle with teams. Every team kind of has a point where they tune their coach out. I feel like
See the NBA
uh,
version of Jim Harbaugh?
he wishes
Eh,
he fucking
not as much success as Jim has had, but the burnout, the quick turnaround. He never spends more than 5 years with a team, except for Michigan,
in that,
8 years, but
yeah,
he left after getting the title.
yeah. I don't know if it was as much burnout with Jim Harbaugh as it was like he wanted more power from ownership. I don't know exactly, but I yeah the Doc Rivers thing. It's yeah, I think he has a shorter cycle with these teams, and how much for a while there he could kind of point to that '08 Celtics run and be like, guys, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm saying. Look at here, we're kind of a little bit removed from that '08 Celtics title now.
Oh yeah.
We're over a decade out. A lot of these players he's coaching now probably don't really remember that title run quite as well, except for when they watched it on their couch when they were like 6 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I wonder how much that's kind of getting through. And I don't know. We'll see. The thing for me is like I think Dame defensively is going to be a problem for this. He's going to
Yeah.
have to show up big offensively because he is going to get hunted in every playoff series because I maybe not everybody knows that. Everybody kind of knows this, but he's been hiding on the kind of whatever you want to call it, less relevant Blazers teams in the past. But he is absolutely a liability on defense in every sense of the word. So, and he's at the point of attack. So
Mm-hmm.
and when they had Drew Holiday, they were able to build everything around that defense and kind
Yep.
of build off of that. And it's not quite that anymore. That's why they had to trade for Patrick Beverly, and it's like he and Dame hate each other. So I don't know. That is a very complicated team. They have a lot of pros who want to win, but the Celtics have kind of handled them in prior configurations that I thought were more difficult. So I'm not terrified of that team. Like I said, I'm the Heat. I do not want to play in the East. I think other than that, the Knicks would be like kind of a tough matchup, but they've been able to handle them. The Cavs have been on an insane heater, with which I don't know how much is legit or not. So, and they totally fell apart last year in the playoffs. So I'm not sure how legit I can really trust them with things.
Are
And then
there
beyond
any
that,
teams that would be in the play-in that give you even just a tiny bit concern?
the ones that I mean, I don't. The Hawks just lost Trey Young. I don't even know who the 10 seed is going to be at this point.
Oh yeah.
But for me, it's like the Pacers and the Magic. I just think they're such young teams right now that they're not quite there, or they may
Mm-hmm.
be a piece of me. But those are the teams I think certainly like next year. I think those teams are going to be even better. Tyrese Halliburton's getting better. They got past Pascal Siakam now on them.
Yeah. The
And they've
Siakam
got some.
trade, I think, is a big one for him. I think that helps them
Anytime you can
inside
get
so much.
yeah, you need a guard and a forward, and you need that kind of tall guy, small guy, inside outside kind of threat. And if those are your two best guys, that's usually a good thing. So I still think there may be a little bit of ways, but that team scares. And then the size that Orlando has with Paolo and Franz and all these guys, if they can kind of figure out some things and maybe add one more piece as well, I think they're a scary team for the future. But as for right now, they don't necessarily scare me. It feels like it's setting up for the Celtics, but the Heat are also right there. I think that's the one that scares me. It still is. And in the West, it's a total crapshoot. It's hard for me to bet against Denver and Jokic,
Yeah.
but it's not wide open. I mean, certainly like Timberwolves and Thunder have been playing great. They're just so inexperienced. And then for me, the Timberwolves thing, it's like there's still a big Rudy Gobert playoffs thing
Yeah.
that I circle every time and go, well, he did this for 5 straight years with the Jazz, and then every time they'd go to the playoffs and they'd put their center on the 3-point line and they'd lose. So it feels very like manageable to kind of coach your way around him. Um, but maybe that's different. Maybe having Ant Edwards there changes things. I don't know. They've got a good team. Like they've got Mike Conley as a steady hand and different shooters and different defenders like Jaden McDaniels. But Cat and Gobert is still the thing that worries me about that team, and you can't really get your head around that without them playing well. So I don't know. They're top of the West right now. We'll see if that holds. But to me, it's hard to bet against Denver, and then the Clippers. It certainly feels like are going to be a threat just because they have so many shot makers and they get good shots at ends of games. And I don't know if the James Harden choking can even affect them that much because he's like their fourth
He's like
best
their fourth
player.
option. Yeah, he's not even their top option.
He's a facilitator. It's not even like last year where it's like, well, the Sixers need him to get to 12 assists and 20 points. It's like the Clippers don't really. Like Norman Powell can have 25 points for them, and if James Harden goes 2 for 9 and has 9 assists, they probably win a lot of those games. So they are a little bit scary. I don't really like their new logo and redesign and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I
I
will
noticed
say
that too.
the jerseys I thought looked good, but the logo itself I didn't really fuck with.
Well,
But
I'll tell you this: I saw renderings of their logos, their last redesign, and I think this one is better than their previous redesigns, or
yeah,
thoughts of redesigns before their current symbol right now.
yeah, yeah. It's very possible, but yeah, it feels like it feels like those top four for the West are pretty solid. The Pelicans, I don't really buy it. The Suns, I don't really buy it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm with you. I think it comes down to the top four teams.
well, I was gonna say these play-in groups are much more fascinating. Like I have much more faith in the Mavericks, the Warriors, and the Lakers than the Pelicans, the Suns, or the Kings. I feel you can't really count out the Warriors or the Lakers, even as much as I would like to. Like you just can't. Um, and then the other team I said I already forgot. I mean, has Luca, so he
Yeah,
could easily win a series on his own. So
I think
the playing squads are almost scarier than a lot of those middle teams.
the Kings kind of took a step back this year from what they were able to do last year.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know what's happened with them because Sabonis is playing out of his mind.
yeah, he's still playing great. You still got
He's
Aaron Fox and a couple of
he's
the other
leading the
guys.
league in he's leading the league in triple doubles and double doubles. And I don't know if it is just like it kind of feels like they play down to their competition sometimes, or they're always just in close games every time. And Keegan Murray has been very up and down, and they do kind of depend on him for scoring sometimes. So when he's hitting, they're great. But like he had a stretch this last 2 weeks where he wasn't really even getting above 10 points. At that point, that's kind of hard. But
Yeah,
yeah, they've still got Malik Monk, but defensively, they just don't. As well as Sabonis has played defensively, he's still not really kind of living up to that end of things. So, like, as good as they are and as much scoring as they have, they let the other team score as well.
yeah,
So they're very prone to kind of being beat on these one-off random nights. Like the night before where they played Miami, they ironically they were down like 20 and then came back and almost won and almost got there. And then Bam hit a couple shots and they closed them out late. So they've been pretty up and down. And it seemed like after that series last year against the Warriors, they would take a big step, but I still just think they need another piece, and they
yeah.
have not made any changes to this team really at all
Well, they
for
just thought they
basically
could run it back and go right back to
other
where they
than
were.
other than the Halliburton Sabonis trade, they have not really made many changes to this team other than signing Monk and drafting Keegan Murray. But it's like I just feel like if you upgrade that Harrison Barnes spot, who's been there forever, if you can get some kind of piece there, some extra defender, extra scorer, I don't know what exactly it is. Maybe a rim defender, somebody to put next to Sabonis, something like that. Maybe you'd have a better chance. But it feels like they're kind of stuck in the middle right now. And if they end up like playing the Warriors again, I'd probably
Pick the
would
Warriors.
pick the Warriors again. And they've got more contributions from Kaminga, and Steph is still Steph, and Clay is Clay on some nights, and Draymond's been better lately with a better attitude at least. So, like, yeah, the West is much more wide open. It's all over the place. It still feels like I guess if I had to predict the finals right now, I'm leaning Denver Boston. Um, but I feel better about Denver, but the West is a lot more volatile as well. So I don't.
Yeah, I could
It,
definitely see the West just beating each other up, and
yeah,
classic Pac-12 football. Just
Black,
beating each
Black
other up and
football.
ruining odds for each other.
Yeah,
And yeah, no, I definitely see that happening with the West, where the East just kind of seems like it's Boston's to lose right now. Um,
it does. But it's
Looking
good.
at some of the MVP odds right now in the NBA,
Who is
excuse me.
is it Jokic?
Jokic is currently leading. You got Embiid, and then you got SGA, Luca, and Giannis.
That's
Tatum's
the guy.
also there.
I
It's
think it's SGA. I actually think he has, other than Jokic, I think it's SGA. He's got a very strong case. This team should not be this good right now, and they're super young, and he is just always going at the other best player on the court, whoever it is. So, like, even this Minnesota team that's doing the same thing, if you want to make like an Ant kind of argument, it's like, well, this team is like set up for this kind of run a lot more. They did the Rudy Gobert trade. They have Cat. They have Mike Conley. Like they actually have invested a lot more into this team, and the timeline makes sense. Whereas Thunder are
they're
still
so
like 2 years
young.
away, and
Yeah,
yet they're going to have 50 wins this season. So I'm compelled by him,
I
but I
think it's
would
going to
not
be
be
tough for them in the
be
playoffs.
fine if Jokic got it again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jokic got it again. I like what you're saying about SGA and the Thunder and what he's been able to do to help lead that team. Come playoff time, though, I have trouble believing
They've
that
got the
Chet
flaws.
is going to be like their number one inside, and he's going to
Yeah,
be focused
there
on a
are.
lot more. The NBA regular season is so different than the playoffs because teams actually
Oh yeah,
walk in, they can actually set up how they want to
yeah.
play you defensively instead of worrying about the back to back and everything else
I
like
love
that. Where as much success as the Thunder have had this year, I find that their youth
the lack. Yeah,
will probably
they're
be an
using
issue
their
and
lack
their
of
lack of
size.
size. And when I say size, it's not height. I just mean like bulk.
Yeah, yeah, they
Chet is
have.
still a string
They, have,
bean.
they don't have. They're literally all of their guys are like string bean lengthy guys,
Yeah.
but they don't have like like a no, I was gonna say Kendrick Perkins, but now he's taking on a different
Well,
connotation.
I
But like
mean, you're just
they
going
don't have
back
like a
to
big
KD and Westbrook
yeah,
Thunder there.
they don't have a big chunky guy that can actually like stand up to somebody if like LeBron's barreling down. I mean, as it is right now, I guess. Well, I don't know. They play the 8 seed, but so yeah, they may end up, or I guess it would be the 7 seed. So they may end up playing the Kings. In which case, it's like actually they might be okay in that sense. They
That
might
one
be able
might
to
be a
get
little
away
different.
with it. I mean, Sabonis might get 1,000 rebounds, but they also might be able to score enough on them. I don't know, or they could end up playing the Warriors or the Mavs. It's like I think the nightmare might be like a Lakers matchup for them just because of the size. But even then, their youth and athleticism, they may just be able to run them off the court. So I'm intrigued. I don't know. It does feel very matchup dependent for them, especially just because they are all of their guys are a very specific type, and that works against other specific types. But if they get in the wrong matchup, they may be in trouble. But yeah, it's just so inexperienced. It's hard to really pr- pick them to like go to the conference finals or go to the finals right away when it's
Yeah.
like I can't even believe they're here right now. They kind of should be more in that spot where the Kings are. It seems like based on their
Yeah.
timeline.
More on the rise instead of being at the top already.
Yeah, based tied for first in the conference above the defending champs. Like that's why the MVP case I think is kind of strong for him, just because
Mm-hmm.
it's like how the hell there's not many things you can point to other than him of like how are they doing this right now? This is insane. Uh, so it's intriguing, but yeah, it's things are heating up post All Star break, post trade deadline. We'll see how things go. I will say the only thing outside of these playoff teams that I even care about is Victor Wembanyama's just incredible to watch. This guy, the stats that he puts up are insane. He always has some one highlight a game where it's like that's not technically possible, is it? And then he just does it. So he's had multiple 5x5s. No, he had a 5x5, and then
He did it back to back games, I think.
he was one short of a 5x5. He may have done it again recently. I don't know, but I know he missed it and then got it.
Oh, okay, that's
Um,
what it was.
that was quite impressive. Yeah, him and Chet both are kind of setting a lot of metrics as far as like rookies with 150 blocks and 75 plus 3-pointers made, and 150 assists, and it's like
That shows
they're
you
going
where
to be.
the NBA is, though. It's like defense
Yep.
inside, shooting threes. Just
Yeah, but
that's how the game is. Yeah.
who can accumulate blocks, assists, and 3-pointers, it's like that person kind of has to be the complete package at that point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of insane. He's been awesome. The team around him sucks though, but in the future, I can't wait to see him. I'd love to see him match up with the Thunder in a matchup for the playoffs, like him versus Chet for a whole series would be awesome. Those guys
Yeah,
already kind of hate each other, it feels like. So any more matchups with them, I'm happy to do. But that's really the only thing going on outside of the actual standings. I don't. Yeah, I mean the Blazers are doing stuff, but it's going fine. Things are happening.
it is
Development.
They're trying hard out there.
Yeah, most.
Any final thoughts on the NBA?
Jokic is still awesome and probably is going to win MVP.
Yeah.
I will not be bad.
No, I won't. I know obviously there's going to be that voter fatigue thing like it was last year when Embiid won, and it's kind of who's going to take it this year. I think we all know that Jokic is probably the most dominant, complete player.
Yeah, he's the best player on the planet.
Yeah,
it did seem like Joel actually might win another when he was on, because his scoring was just on another level this year, but with the injury, I don't even know if he'll really come back. So
I think he's already missed too many games to begin with.
There's that. Yeah,
you got to make so many games to be considered for it now. They changed that rule.
Yeah, 65 or 70 or something. I forget.
Yeah, I think you need to play.
Is that just all NBA All Star stuff, or is that also MVP?
I thought that was like MVP postseason award stuff.
Maybe it was everything. I know it was for all NBA teams and that kind of stuff, but it may have also been for all awards in general. I wouldn't be surprised, which is kind of a bogus rule, to be honest. I don't know if that one's going to stick around because it immediately is kind of being proven faulty, but I don't know. We'll see.
Proven faulty?
We'll see.
Why do you say that?
Well, just because it's actually kind of it seems like a very high mark. It seemed Joel was, before he was getting hurt, was probably going to miss that mark just because he was resting on different days. So it seems like a very high mark for some of those things. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if anyone else will fall below it. I guess that'll be a better test. But Joel was already in danger, and he was just kind of regular. I mean, he rests more than most guys, but he wasn't. It was going to be close. So I'm curious if they'll reevaluate that at all. It just seems like kind of an unnecessary metric to me. We can usually tell for ourselves whether they played enough.
They didn't do it to punish the players. I think it was more just to get more engagement from players, take less rest days, and play more. It's weird because the NBA is it's in the players' hands right now for the most part, where they're kind of dictating what goes and what doesn't, and the NBA is trying to force their hand to get you to play more. And it's a weird dynamic between those two, the higher ups in the NBA than the Players Association / players. It's different than any other sport.
Yeah, because the players just actually have power. Negotiating power within the NBA, which they do not in the NFL. They don't really, in the MLB, NHL, there's just too many players. But with 5 players and you make that much impact and that much monetary impact on teams and franchises, you actually have negotiating power when you're the NBA PA. So they actually can be involved in these decisions. So I'll be curious where it goes. But yeah, the season so far has been pretty good. But I'm excited for the playoffs. That's when things will really kick off and it'll become a whole nother game.
Yeah. All right. I know we're kind of running up on time. You want to nerd corner it, or do you want to pet peeve it?
Up to you. Peeve it.
You got any peeves on the top of your head?
Yeah, I got one. Well, I just hate tutorials in video games.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's the worst.
Okay, because Helldivers 2 is real big right now. I don't know if you've heard of this or seen this.
Is that like the space trooper one or something like that? Or am I
Starship Troopers?
It's like Starship Troopers though, right?
Yeah. Okay. Very much, fighting for democracy, killing the bugs kind of thing.
Yep.
It's a big game right now. It's just squad-based third-person shooting bugs. So I hopped on to play with a friend the other day, and it dropped me into this tutorial immediately. And for some reason, my fucked up brain is like, as soon as you put me in a tutorial, I am just mashing the button and keeping my head down and not learning anything. Like, I
Well,
immediately am like, get me out of this fucking thing. I don't want this. I hate this. Okay. And then I get out and I'm like, how do I play this game?
well, I feel like most games are
I don't understand how to
pretty
change
similar in
weapons. What?
controls. I mean, like,
They
your
are,
right
but I
trigger
don't.
is going to be shooting, your left stick is moving you, your right stick changes the camera view. Like,
Well, I thought so too, but then it turns out in order to like order a gun in this game, you have to like type out a whole Dance Dance Revolution, up, down, left, right, and then it'll like send a little pod to the planet, and then you can pick up your gun. And I forgot what the button was to even call it the thing, so I couldn't get a gun. So I was just running around like an idiot.
that can be
Uh,
frustrating. Yep.
yeah, but it's like it's partly my own fault, but it's partly like these bone dried tutorials. Every time I'm in there, I'm just like, I'm not learning anything. I want to get out of here. Get me out of here. You can't be teaching me that much.
Or it's like it
Uh,
takes up the first like 25, 30 minutes of you playing a game.
yeah,
Like, I liked
it's,
Ghost of Tsushima. I really enjoyed playing it.
they
But
lock
like
you
the
in there.
first 25 minutes, it's just sitting there learning button by button. Just like, all right, a lot of this I could
Yeah,
probably figure out on my own.
I just want to learn. I very much would just rather learn on the go. Like when I golf, I don't really hit a bucket. I just go out on the course and kind of figure it out as I go. So it may just be the way my brain is wired, but yeah, and the bad tutorials as well, especially because then it's just like you're wasting my time. I'm not learning anything because this is so obvious already, and I can't actually play the real game until I get through this. So I don't know. That was the one I experienced this week for sure, where I was just like, God. And they're literally all like, "Can you join our game? Can you join our game?" I was like, "I'm in this tutorial. Like, let me finish the stupid thing first." So yeah, that's definitely one I experienced this week.
All right, yeah, I got a couple. One of them is just ESPN Plus. You're just on my shit list right now. You know,
The
we work
Pluth.
in the sports broadcasting industry. We made the switch as a conference to ESPN Plus, and here I am finally getting notes and feedback on demos and stuff. It's like, all right, we need this game tape, and here, yeah, they don't hold on to your game tapes as we were told. So
They
they
did.
hold it for 30 days, and then once the 30 days is by, they ship it out of the system, and it is just gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every volleyball game that we had this past year and the first 2 months of the basketball season, gone. So we were kind of lied to. So that's kind of my pet peeve right now. Just people following through with what we were told, and not following through.
That's half the pitch. It's like, oh, all your games will be on here. It'll be great. It's like,
Yeah, you
no,
can
that
go back, watch it whenever you want, download it whenever you need. No, wrong.
within a month. You got to read
And
the
I
small print.
talked to somebody online for 30 minutes trying to figure out like, hey, like what can we do here? Is there any way to go back? And it was nope, just kind of shit out of luck. Sorry. I was like, cool. This is awesome. So
Great.
that's my first pet peeve. My second pet peeve is people who take rec league basketball way too seriously. I ref basketball. I ref a lot of sports over on the Nike World Headquarters campus, and
Uh,
I've had basketball for the last 3 weeks, and let me tell you, my mental state of just reffing those basketball games, awful. Hate it.
yeah.
Every oh ref, where's the foul on this? Foul on that? It's like, well, I'm one ref when there's usually three refs to a basketball game, so I'm not going to see everything. And
Yeah.
second of all, if you want me to call fouls, I could basically call foul on every single play. It's rec league basketball. Everybody's fucking hack-a-shack over here.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm trying to keep game flow going. Also, man up. Take a little bump. Will ya? Not complain
Yeah.
about it? Like, this is normal basketball, but everybody's expecting a foul after every single possession. It's just like, just grow the fuck up. Play the game. This is a corporate environment. You guys aren't even playing for anything. It's not like you win a state title. You
Come
get
on.
bragging rights within your own company. Like, and it's rec league basketball. It's rec league. Come on. Like,
Yeah.
don't take it so seriously. I had one kid yesterday. Oh my God, I'll never forget about it. It'll be burned in my brain forever. He like went to go drive in, got into the paint, and then goes up for a shot, ran into his own guy, and then yells, "Fucking foul!" As if I was going to call that. And I was like, "You ran into your own guy. What do you do?" And so I called him. I pulled him over at halftime. I was like, "You ever pull that shit again? I'm just going to kick you out. I'm not dealing with that." So my pet peeve is very high right now with these people in rec league basketball on thinking they're in the goddamn league, and just You're not. You're not.
Damn.
Just stop
Telling it to
complaining
him.
about these. Be happy you even get a referee. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's my pet peeve. That's my pet peeve.
Wow, wow, wow. I wonder if there's another podcast somewhere where some other guy's pet peeve is refs at rec league basketball not taking it seriously enough.
The worst part is like I tell them before every game, I go, hey, listen, I'm by myself. I can't make every single call. And I'm also not
Yeah.
the world's greatest ref. All right? Like, I'm limited in
But
what I can do. I know that. But I don't need to hear
dude,
you
they didn't
chirping
hire
after
a
every
pro
single
ref for
possession.
this.
What?
They didn't hire a pro ref for this. I apologize. Like,
It's
this is what we're at. You're
like
not in the league.
I get paid fucking nothing, really. Come on. Like, and you're gonna give me shit? I'm just
You're
here
paid
to
to
help
deal
you
with
guys
that.
run your league. Like,
Yeah.
don't 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 give me lip. Don't give me attitude. I called a foul yesterday, and then the one guy was complaining that I didn't call the foul. I was like, I literally blew the whistle. Like,
the
the 8 other people on the floor heard it. Like, what are you
hell?
complaining about?
Oh
He's
my
like,
god.
oh well, I didn't know. I was like, yeah, well, you're prematurely complaining about getting a call that I already called.
Poor refs.
So I
This is
was like,
why
yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
like, listen, if this was like college level or NBA level, and I'm not doing a great job, sure, give me shit. That's my professional
Sure.
job.
Yeah,
This is not my
it's actually your
professional
job.
job. Like, I get
No.
asked to come in here for these games, two games a day for this week or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. That's when I come in, and like my knowledge of sport, I think is pretty good, but I have only one set of eyes, and I also can't see through 8 people in the paint to see you
That's
get
a problem.
hacked on the other side. I just can't see it. Can't see it. If I had 2 other refs that get all the angles, sure, you'll get the call. But it's one dude. And it's just like, the worst part is they're like, oh, well, it's like, I know you're by yourself. It's like, well, if you know, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, what
Like,
yeah.
you know we're already behind the 8 ball on this one. Like, we can only call so much. You obviously see I'm by myself. You acknowledge it, and yet you still feel the need to bitch and moan and be the
Welcome
peanut
to Rec
gallery.
League
So
Basketball.
yeah,
Yeah.
my pet peeve is take it easy. It's rec league basketball. It's not the end of the world.
For some it sounds like it may be. That's wow. It's tough. Yeah, I refed a flag football for like little kids back when I was in high school,
Uh-huh.
and dealing with the fucking parents
Oh, the
was
worst.
the worst. So I totally get where you're coming from. That's usually why I end up kind of trying to defend the refs sometimes because it's always the easiest thing in the world to just scream about the refs and galvanize your whole fan base. But I don't know. A lot of the times I'm like, well, I don't. Was
Well,
that a foul? I don't know.
well, you and I have heard. Well, you've heard Jen and I talk about it on the air. It's like, man, I would not want to be a ref in this game right now because of how physical it is and things left
No,
and right, and just like it's not a fun job. Like
no.
I don't envy anybody who has to deal with it. Like Shantae's hot headed. Love his energy. Don't get me wrong, but like
Yeah,
seeing Shantae get a full head of steam and just what the are we doing?
yeah.
Like, how did you
Well,
miss
just
that? It's just like,
the
no.
way of officiating and playing off the officiating has kind of evolved in basketball, with the head fakes and the Harden rules and the Damian Lillard kind of stuff, the pull throughs. So there's like a whole game within the game of just tricking the refs and not even really playing for the foul rather than
Yep.
playing ball. So I
The amount of
absolutely would
times I
not
have
want to
people
be
in,
anywhere.
yeah, the amount of times that I have people embellish like getting pushed in the back on a layup or anything like that. I was like, dude,
Yeah,
he didn't even touch you. He was next to you. I
yeah.
watched it the whole time, and then you flop
It's
as you're going up in the air because you're expecting him to touch you, and he didn't.
yeah, it's the
Or
soccerification.
I got people who go straight up, and they're like, oh, he's in my way. I was like, he's standing his ground. He's going straight up. He's in the defensive position. What do you want? Or people who lower their shoulder and they're asking for contact. It's like, you created the contact, not the defender. I don't
Well,
know what you're
well,
trying
LeBron
to
gets
get
away
here.
with it. Why can't I get away with it? LeBron gets away with it every time.
Oh my
He just
god.
puts the shoulder down, goes into the paint, and they get the foul.
Yeah,
Bada
well,
bing, bada
you're
boom.
also 5'7" and he's like 6'2". So,
Wow, I
what are
know.
you going to do? I'm talking about in our rec league. Obviously,
Talking
LeBron
about
is
Bronny
like six
James, or
nine.
are you talking about someone directly? It's hard to know.
What was that?
Bronny James, is that who you're talking about? He's about that size too.
Yeah, no, he's definitely that
That's why I don't think mock drafts matter. All this talk we had about mock drafts, they don't really matter. LeBron said they don't matter, so I don't care. I
size.
don't care anyway.
Yeah,
Definitely wasn't specifically about his son or anything.
No, definitely not, I didn't get a notification that the Raptors were
Although,
interested in scouting Bronny James Jr.
I mean,
Didn't get get that.
he's like, why you got to do this to these kids, man? They're just playing basketball. It's like, dude, LeBron, like this is the fucking business. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
as if it's changed from when you were in high school. Like,
yeah.
like
So maybe you don't
I'm
remember
pretty sure
because
they
you
were doing mock
skipped
drafts for
school.
you too. Like, that's just part of the business.
Yeah, but those mock drafts had him at number 1, so those were right. Those were good mock
Oh, okay,
drafts.
yeah, not late second round draft picks.
No. Those guys don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts? I figure we'll probably save Nerd Corner for next week since we
Yeah,
debuted a new segment called Peeves.
let's save it. Yeah, we peeved it up there.
Yeah, we did. I got a little more animated than I would like. My bad.
Sounds like you needed that one. Yeah, fair enough.
I did, dude. I needed to vent a little bit. I just, it is not a fan of some of these people. And yeah,
You need to
it's
start calling flopping on them. If they're going to embellish, just be like flopping. Other team gets a shot, and they'll be like, "What?" Then all that'll stop. You'll really put a stop to it.
yeah,
You'll curb their enthusiasm in that sense. Is that a phrase?
yeah. I mean, it's a
For the
show.
show that's
I'll count
on.
it. It's a phrase to me.
Good show.
Well,
Final
yeah,
season.
yeah. Final season. Haven't seen the final season yet, though.
Final season.
They seem pretty adamant about this one. The last few they
Yeah,
left it pretty open, and this one they seem pretty sure on it being the
I
end.
don't know. The show died or it ended for 5 years, so I'm at this point. We'll see. He could come
I
back
mean, that's
again and
happened
do
a
it.
couple times with that show. Like they'll
Yeah,
take like 2 or 3 years off and then come back. And
kind
I
of.
mean,
Yeah.
most of that show is all improv. It's not even like he writes out the script. He just has an outline. It's like, all right, this is kind of what the scene's about. Well, let's go.
Yeah, you can literally see like his buddy will say something and he'll just start laughing in the scene, and it's like, okay, yeah, I love it. That's great. Yeah, another successful episode of Sportslandia. Look at us.
Yeah, getting through it. Obviously we got the combine coming up, so once that's done this week, we'll talk a little bit about that. Hopefully, there's trades. Maybe a couple trades made in the NFL.
Could be one of our teams. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, could be one of our teams. Obviously, the NBA is closing in on the final few weeks of their regular season as well.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next time around. And yeah, so that wraps up this episode of Sportslandia. That's Ray. I'm Brian. Thanks for tuning in on the Next Professional Athlete platform, and we'll see you the next time we see you.